This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Gaardsy, what do we have?
Are you interested in the New York Knicks coaching job? You're a ball guy.
I rule nothing out.
It might come down to it. So we already know that the Knicks have asked for permission to talk to Jason Kidd. For now, they've been denied. We know that they've asked Houston to talk to Ime Udoka. They've been denied. We also learned that Finchie, they were interested in. Chris Finch. And Tim Conley said, not going to work. Here's another one for you. The New York Knicks, according to Shams 15 minutes ago, have requested permission to speak with Atlanta Hawks head coach Quinn Snyder, but were firmly denied. So it seems like the Knicks' plan was, we don't like Tibbs, we're going to fire Tibbs, and we're just going to call around the league and try to poach somebody, which eventually they're going to find a coach, but it doesn't seem like, you feel bad for whoever it's going to be a little bit, because they're down to option, at least that we know of, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by the time they finally get a hire. Your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the Shams report about a firm denial from Atlanta regarding Quinn Snyder. It's worth noting that he used the same language regarding Jason Kidd. Dallas, he writes, gave a firm rejection. I think if you read between the lines, what this is telling us, or is trying to tell us, is organizations around the league are getting PO'd. They're getting annoyed that a practice that is not, I won't call it unprecedented, but one that hasn't happened in a long time is not being appreciated for all the obvious reasons. It's like, well, we're all in this together in a sense. So the idea that we got people under contract and you think, again, out of hubris, arrogance, whatever it might be, that you're just going to be, we're going to just crumble on your behalf is the seat of arrogance. And look, they may have a master plan. It sure doesn't look like it right now. Right now, it all just smacks of desperation because isn't it not fair to say that if you're going to try to defend the indefensible, which is dismissing Tom Thibodeau after a year in which he's led the team, not just this year, the last several years, to their best success, sustained success in basically almost 3 decades, that we got something locked and loaded, right? We know exactly who we want. We think that person is a slam dunk. And you could say, well, maybe they think that the just dismissed Denver Nuggets coach, Mr. Malone, falls in that classification. Well, he's been available. So obviously you don't think he's the slam dunk if you are now 4 deep in asking teams to release coaches under contract with them. That tells me that you're not, maybe you're squeamish about the obvious choices. And you just, it's such a bad look for an organization that, from an ownership standpoint, has looked like, goofballs forever, right? I mean, Dolan has been about as bad a steward as owner of the Knicks as one could imagine. It seemed like he finally did something right, correct? Which was he hired a general manager who seemed to have maybe created some stability, and Tibbs had created some stability as well. And now you're just becoming New York is back to fresh off getting to the conference finals
for the first time in forever.
They're returning to their previous position in the league as a league laughingstock.
Game 3 of the NBA Finals tonight. It's in Indy, the greatest city in the world. Nobody hosts a game, especially a basketball game, like the city of Indianapolis. Series is tied at 1. The Thunder, the Road Thunder, are 5.5-point favorites on the DraftKings betting line. Lynx are back in action tonight, a game you'll hear right here on the Fan, 9 o'clock tonight against the Seattle Storm. And one more Shams bomb.
By the way, the roar for 44 continues. We're undefeated, the Lynx.
Yep.
And the Liberty won again by 20 last night. They're 9-0. So we still have the collision course inevitably. Will the two teams still both be undefeated when they play for the first time this regular season? I think we said in late July.
Yeah, it's a ways off.
It's a ways off, yeah.
Twins are playing tonight, too, against the Rangers. Festa on the mound. Lastly, and we can go quick on this because we talked a little bit about it with Mitch Lawrence, but the Suns and Kevin Durant's business partner, Rich Kleiman, are sorting through trade options. The interested teams mainly feature New York, Miami, San Antonio Davey, Houston, and your Minnesota Timberwolves.
We're in on it. There's no question. It doesn't mean he's going to end up here, but we're 100% in on it. And that, I still think, no matter how you feel about Durant, should make you feel good about the positioning of this franchise. Because how many times in our history have we ever been in a position where a list like that, our franchise would show up, right? We wouldn't even be considered. We wouldn't even be under also receiving votes. And it tells you that we're in a better place. Now, again, the price has to be right. Durant's getting older. We get all that stuff. But
and I don't know how I feel about the 2-year extension at like $110 each.
That's the scary part.
Where you got to start thinking about some stuff.
That's the scary part.
That was part of the reason you got rid of Towns.
Is it possible that we're going to find out that Villa 7 is in charge of the Knicks coaching search?
Hang on.
Is it possible?
The next question. This is high-level competitive.
I still miss Villa 7.
I talked to Villa 7 a little bit.
Is that right?
Not Norwood, not the head of the snake.
Not that one. Okay, no. That would be the big one. Yeah, well, he's the main guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he defines Villa 7, but he wasn't the only one involved with
exactly.
it. Exactly.
Okay. Exactly.
All right,
let's pause.
We'll pause. We'll try to straddle. We're already a little bit late. We got a bit of sound that I had Gaardsy pull today that I think is worthy of a minute or two, and then we'll prepare for Kessler at 5:30. Emailer Jeff Monticello. Durant A-list for an older player past his prime seems a lot like the Twins every single year. Do we have a sounder that says no, no, no? Didn't we once upon a time?
Yeah.
Who was that? I don't remember who it was.
It was from a reality show, I think.
But if we had that sounder, that's the one I would be playing right now.
There's one big difference. There's multiple, but go ahead.
I mean, again, that doesn't mean that you have to know what the price tag is. Like you said, you have to be aware of what you're going to have to do in terms of extending, potentially. There's a lot of variables and even what you have to give up. But please, 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 Jeff, I beg of you, you got to work on a better analogy or comparison than that. Let me give you Kevin Durant's numbers the last, well, certainly, let's just do the last 2 seasons, okay?
The shooting numbers are off the charts.
They're absurd. Last year, now he's 36 now, going to be 37, is that correct?
I'll double check, but something like that.
He averaged 26.6 points a game in 36 and a half minutes a game. Shot 52.7% from the floor, 43% from three, 84% from the free throw line. The year before that, 75 games. Averaged 27-1. Averaged 52.3% from the floor, 41.3% from three. In fact, you can go back. The last time the guy shot under 50% from the floor was his 3rd year in the league. So at some point you can't be age can't be defined as the same with everybody. He's a freak for his age. He is still one of the top, most dangerous scorers in the league. When it comes to, we need another guy to just, create their own shot.
Go get a bucket. Beyond
just having always the burden for Anthony Edwards. He can do that. Now, again, you don't want to play him at power forward now. I think that's probably fair to say. Is he a great defender? No. He's not an awful defender, though. He's not. And so there's reasonable debate to be had on how ambitious you get and what you're willing to give up. But this has zero to do with, generally speaking, the players that the Twins wait for to get to the end of their career to see if you could steal them at a decent price. Because you're not going to steal him at a decent price. He's still going to be making a lot of money as well. That's
the difference. If you extend him, he's probably making more per year than Anthony Edwards.
Correct.
Even with the Supermax.
That's it.
And that's my one concern with it. That's what we kind of talked about last week. They did all this unwinding. They traded Karl Anthony Towns.
That was then. This is now.
I know, to try to get themselves better positioned once this second apron nonsense all started. And maybe part of it was because they saw this coming. And we don't want to be a second apron team with Kat, but we would with Kevin. Maybe that's what they were thinking. I don't know. Because it'd be a 2-year, $110 million extension he'd be eligible for. And if he waited 6 months after the deal, they could actually sign him to 2 years, $124, which is crazy. We're following up another story today.
2 more follow-ups to get to here before Kessler at the bottom of the hour. This is a good one, and I'm going to believe him because this logically makes sense. This is from 612 guy. Please be aware that if the Lynx and Liberty remain undefeated, they will have to meet July 1 for the Commissioner's Cup.
Oh, that's right.
Championship.
Yeah, that's right.
Great reminder.
Yes.
That's an alert listener.
And tonight's the Commissioner Cup game, I believe, too.
Last night, ESPN's commentators, except for Ryan Rucco, could not seem to grasp the process. So he's right. I mean, we're both undefeated, I think, for the Cup. So that could be the collision course. And
we knocked them off for the Cup last year in the finals.
We did?
Yes,
I remember that.
Out there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got the banner hanging at Target Center.
Is there really a banner?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
It's a Commissioner Cup banner, and there's room for future years for them to win it. They're not going to put up a new banner every year. They're just going to put like the years
I like that.
as
That's
they
smart.
go.
That's the way to do it.
I thought it was a good touch.
You don't want to take because you want to save the banner space for winning more titles.
Exactly.
And we're already running out of space on that end of the court or end of the ceiling
with retared players,
with the Lynx
numbers, and
endless.
the banners.
That's
yes.
Here's another callback. Follow up, one could say. I'm going to take D from Southern Minnesota at his word. Okay,
sounds trustworthy.
Dan, a few years ago, I lost my license while fishing in Alaska. Didn't know until I was leaving Sitka?
Yes.
TSA pulled me aside, asked several questions. Several times I was asked if I had a Costco card, which I do not. I had 2 credit cards, a blank check, and a fishing license for the state of Alaska. Not good enough. I also had my private applicator's license for pesticides. They let me on the plane with that. That's what got them on. No photo ID. So what D from Southern Minnesota is suggesting is that as absurd as it now sounds about people trying to beat the new Real ID deadline by using their photo ID, their Costco card, which, you know, the government agency, the TSA folks have said, not going to work. You can't do it. He's suggesting that once upon a time, they were actually asking him as a bailout, hey, you got a Costco card with your picture ID on it? Might be able to get you through that way. Now, that, again, was pre-Real ID.
Yeah.
But the fact that it ever might have been used indicates that maybe, was it Bumblebee? No, what was the...
Chowhound?
Chowhound.
Bumblebee.
Maybe Chowhound is owed an apology for surmising about the possibility of using a Costco card.
I have to think long and hard at my criticism of Chowhound earlier in the show.
Reconsider your Chowhound savagery.
I might have to.
Is what it amounts to.
Thankfully, you're going to be talking to Kessler, and I'll be able to reflect on that.
Was there any other follow-up stuff I wanted to get to? I felt like there was one more. Well, we had the Costas sound. We'll save that.
That's not going anywhere.
And yeah, it's timeless, and it could just as easily be used late in the show today to make, I think, an important point. Important in the toy department sense. And even tomorrow, we could use it after the Game 3 results are in the book. Special K, a very special edition with Puff Puff Pat Kessler. That's his new nickname, right?
What? I think we can even go further. Puff, puff, pass, Pat Kessler.
That's right. Puff, puff, pass.
Either one's good.
And I don't think he's going to be offended by it. I think he might actually appreciate it. And by the way, there is an update on our new pot laws. You saw the latest development, right? From a tax standpoint. This will shock you. We are through the roof.
Oh, yeah, I did
on
see
pot
this.
taxes.
Yeah.
I think we might have the highest pot taxes in the United States of America. All we do is give.
This is the greatest honor of my life. To be able to report to people in Minnesota, my people, what's happening in their state.
I wish the American media would take a great look at
That was so good. That was TV gold. That was TV gold right there.
Pat Kessler. Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
This is Pat Kessler reporting.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler.
And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics.
This is Pat Kessler.
Our own
Pat Kessler.
political wonk.
Yada.
I feel like a supermodel except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's
Pat Kessler.
with Dan Barrero on the Fan.
It's been a very, very difficult week for popular music history in this country. Sylvester Stewart, also known as Sly of Sly and the Family Stone, died at the age of 82. What day did we owed him? Was that Monday?
Monday.
Yeah, well, today's Wednesday. Yeah, it was 2 days ago. And then the story breaks today that Brian Wilson, the mad genius inventor, the straw that stirs the drink of the Beach Boys, has died as well. Same week, two huge names. And we come to find out that Puff, Puff, Pass, Pat Kessler has a terrific callback story to the Beach Boys and the first concert you say you ever attended.
Very first concert, July 8th, 1968. Now imagine Homer Simpson.
You were 30? 35.
I was almost, 35.
Okay,
maybe.
all right.
Imagine Homer Simpson with hair, you know how they portray him. And I'm all hip wearing the psychedelic clothes and all of that stuff. Yeah, my first concert, Fargo Civic Auditorium is where this was. So a kid off the farm just coming in to look at this. It was wild. It was crazy. Opening act of Human Beings, one of your favorite bands.
I don't remember them.
Nobody can do.
Oh, that's what you said earlier. Okay. Yeah, I do remember that song. Yeah, good song.
Second one, yeah, great song. I think that might have been their only song.
That's
then Gary
Puckett and the Union Gap?
Yes.
Are you kidding?
And this is the dude who cried through all his songs.
Did he really?
Young girl,
yeah, you're right.
And they were inappropriate. Young girl, get out of my mind.
She could have been 21.
My love for you is way out of line.
Yeah, that's true.
Better run, girl.
Yeah.
You're much too young.
Yeah, that's
girl.
true. Yeah,
so
it's a different era.
But then the Beach Boys. And this is 1968. And to my great disappointment, I did not understand at the time that Brian Wilson, by this time, was living in a house with his piano in a sandbox in his living room. So
true.
he
right.
was beginning to experience mental health issues. And but they played the Good Vibrations.
They stuck the piano in the sandbox.
Absolutely.
That he composed on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
what they did.
Yeah.
But the Beach Boys, they were dressed all in white. They actually had a small orchestra with them, like 5, 6, 7, 8-piece orchestra. But the crazy part is that I'm thinking about this a couple of years ago, and I'm going online.
This is a concert that you went to in 68.
1968.
Okay.
I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
I'm just a kid. I don't even know how I got home.
So you're down the online rabbit hole.
Yeah, I am.
Not that long ago. A couple years ago, you said?
Yeah. You got the porn sites, you got the gambling site, and then I'm looking at music.
Gaardsy just marked that one. That's going to be another soundbite, but go ahead. That's how it
Can
works.
I just talk about my life?
I wish you could, but the answer is no. None of us can.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's been a great run.
It's a bit.
Yeah.
It's all a bit.
What a great state.
But here's the deal. So I find a recording of the Beach Boys at the Fargo Civic Auditorium, July 8th, 1968, the concert I attended, the very first concert. So think about this, and by this time I'm probably high as a kite, but this is grown-ass man Pat listening to young blood Pat.
So processing it decades later.
I'm listening to the recording of me listening to the Beach Boys.
You can't make that up. That's tremendous.
Yeah, it's wild.
Did you see yourself in the crowd? That would have been funky.
Well, I know that he was doing LSD. Now, if I had been doing that, perhaps you could see yourself, floating above the crowd.
That's true.
But yeah, they played all the songs. Brian was not at this concert, and to my great disappointment. But because he was already
having some difficulties,
he had withdrawn very recently before that. But they were playing all the songs from Pet Sounds, playing all those songs, which was very influential, and some of my favorite music from the Beach Boys, and of course Pet Sounds, which influenced the Beatles. Which at the time I thought, well, how could this possibly? But the orchestral arrangements, the different melodies, the offbeat melodies, all of that were beginning to tag this dude as a genius, and he reluctantly did not want to accept that label, which I think also probably led to his demise and pulling away from the band. But yeah, it's they played a big part in my life as a youth, even more than Gary Puckett and the Union Gap.
Here's the one of the links, I think, between Sly Stone and Brian Wilson. Given the musical oracles they were, the giants they were, how much they influenced others in their genres of music, the sad reality, because of some cases, the mental issues they dealt with, the drug issues that they dealt with, they could never have those senior years where let's just sit down and just work these guys' brains on music and what it was like then and the process, because they were burned out by then to varying degrees. Now, Sly had an autobiography that came out a year ago, but I don't think there was a lot in it that you'd hope there would be, given his musical legacy. That's one of the sad things about both of them, is that they weren't around, that mentally they weren't around enough to be able, even if they were done doing the music, let's just talk about it, man. Let's talk about what you hear now.
How did you come about with this?
Exactly.
And what was going on around you that made you think you could do this?
Correct.
And then make something out of nothing. Because none of this kind of music existed until they created it. And Sly, who's fantastic and awesome, influenced an entire generation, even to today, with the funk, rhythm and blues, through Prince. Prince, this is one of Prince's influences, no question, just as the Beach Boys influenced so many people in a completely different way. But I know what you're saying. It's regretful that it was hard, other than him relating his experiences, Brian Wilson could not really unwrap piece by piece what it was that made him a creative genius. What is it about these guys, like Dylan in pop music and Sly and all these people and Prince, that somehow you flip a switch and they begin to create art in ways that have never done before, and which will last the test of time? That it's a question that I think about frequently.
All right, let's get to.
And I brought my record, and I brought a little 45 in of.
Tell our radio audience what you hold in your right
just
hand.
A little bit of the break. Yeah, this is a Beach Boys 45.
Define what a 45 is.
Stop it! I know.
The kids don't know.
Kids, I'm telling you. Here's the deal.
Okay.
We had to play it on record players. So when you hear somebody say it's like a broken record, if there's a scratch in the record, the needle would keep going over and over and over again. So this is a very small, like a 7/8 inch dealie. It is a 45 record in which you would put it on a record player, put the needle on it, and it would play. And it's not as big as an album.
One song on either side.
One song on either
usually,
side.
Correct?
Yeah,
that was it. There's only room for one recording on each side.
You had an A side and a B side.
That's correct.
And sometimes the B side, and I believe that one of their number one hits, I Get Around.
Yeah.
Round, round, get around, I get around. Kind of, my mantra.
Has been over the decades.
Yeah. That's on the B side of this. So the other side is Don't Worry, Baby. So I'll post this, and then in the Kessler collection, I do have, I collect a number of 45s with jackets. So they would have a paper jacket with the picture of the band on the front. So I'll post that.
Nice, you should. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I posted a little bit earlier, but yeah, so that's
radio is now visual as well as we don't. I know our show is never on the stream.
I think you would do well.
Well, that remains to be seen. I like the way Texter Guy put it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get to fully realize and become the elder statesmen they should have been. Legends. That's a great way to distill exactly what I was attempting
insightful for sure.
to say. All right, here's a story that wasn't on your list. There's a lot to get to.
Great. Here we go.
But this is a journalism. This is one of those, I think, journalistic questions that would be good in a high school and certainly a college journalism classroom.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to think. For me, I think J310 was the legal side of, legal precedent journal. So it wouldn't have been that. Would have been 210 at Indiana University. Might have been J111, which would have laid out sort of, scenarios and what's the proper approach that the entity that this individual works for should take. I'm speaking specifically about the Terry Moran news.
Okay,
I'm going to read you a couple of tweets here. Mm-hmm. The White House is boasting about its role in getting a journalist fired for criticizing Trump and Stephen Miller. It had already admitted to directly pressuring ABC to hold ABC's Terry Moran accountable. Maybe ABC would have fired him anyway for violating its journalistic standards, but we'll likely never know because the administration decided to throw its weight around in response to constitutionally protected speech. Now, let's rewind the videotape, and for those who haven't been paying attention to this story, and remind them what a very accomplished ABC News reporter and anchor, Terry Moran, tweeted out that got him in the meat grinder and that ultimately has led to his ABC dismissal before we get to whether he should have been dismissed.
Yeah, let's backtrack just a little bit because he, on Saturday night at midnight, sent out a post. He posted a tweet. And by the way, Saturday at midnight, who among us has not?
Was this a drunk
posted?
Tweet?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
I'm fortunate to have someone who stops me in my personal life from tweeting stuff out.
B-E-R-R-U-N, B-Run.
So you got a tweet that Terry Moran, a 30-year veteran of ABC News, tweets out, and he calls Donald Trump and your guy, Stephen Miller, calls them world-class haters, among other things. And I do believe I've got the tweet here somewhere, but what he says that, among other things, that they find spiritual fulfillment from hate. Let's find this.
I think he said in Trump's case, it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
In the case of Miller, who I think I called Bannon yesterday, Steve Bannon's somebody very different.
Yeah.
That Miller is about the hate. He's saying there's no middle ground or there's no middleman here. For Trump, it's a means. It's a means to his hatred's a means to an end. But in Miller's case, that's the end. His hatred is the end.
And specifically what he said, that's not what's interesting about Miller, and he's talking about Trump and the Trumpist movement. He's the power behind the throne, all of that. He says it's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater.
There it is.
You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Well, I mean, why would you do this? Now, you ask the journalistic, moral, ethical question, would he have been fired?
If Walter Cronkite lived today and had an X account, would he be capable, no matter what he was thinking, of sending out this kind of tweet, midnight, 2 p.m., 4 in the morning, whatever?
All of us are capable of doing this. We all are.
Yes, we are.
But this is completely unacceptable. The White House is claiming credit for getting him fired. That is false, like many falsehoods we hear from the White House. he would have been fired and should have been fired because of this. It betrays everything there is about being a journalist, trying to be objective, trying to be fair. This not only violates every basic tenet of journalism, it also plays into the narrative, whether true or not, that look at these legacy media guys. They are out to get us. They're all liberals. They hate Trump. They have Trump derangement syndrome. And I don't know about this guy. I don't know much about him except professionally. But even if you do, what are you talking about? Why would you do this? Why would you put this on X? And then subsequently it was deleted, but of course, too late.
Or did you read what Mediaite had to say?
I want to hear.
A closer look at Moran's tweets reveal, over a period of time,
all of them, okay,
far more nuanced views that do not neatly fit into any partisan category on the left or the right. They lay out that there's some examples, but scrolling through Moran's timeline, find evidence contradicting all these allegations of radical leftism easily, almost immediately, in fact.
Okay.
His pinned tweet from November 18, 2024, is a long and detailed post-election analysis of Trump's electoral victory, which shocked many Democrats, and gives respectful credit to Trump's appeal to voters. Donald Trump ignited a populist revolt the moment he came down that escalator. Millions of Americans demanding change, not sure what it might look like, bringing along their own ideas and resentments, found in this man their interest. Or their instrument, I guess I should say.
Sure.
So does it matter? If you throw out the one tweet,
zero does
is it
not
so
matter.
Far over the line that it doesn't matter that over a period of time he's actually been a lot more nuanced?
Absolutely does not matter.
Does it matter that what he wrote is accurate?
That's a whole other question. What if it's accurate? Does that mean it's fair? Does that mean you can do this? Is it true that they are world-class haters? That's very subjective. That's really subjective. And that's what we're hearing from some other journalists who are point of view journalists, that is liberals, and you could do it the same way on the other side of the spectrum, conservatives. But they're saying that what he said is accurate. Come on, you can't fire him for that. It's the truth. Well, you're supposed to be a journalist, and by that you cannot reveal or talk about or post something as inflammatory as that. And I'm really sad to say this because it is said that he has had a very illustrious career.
He had a very good career. There's no question.
Very solid journalist.
Yes,
but are you going to remember him for that election night analysis he wrote, or are you going to remember him for this? And I'm sorry to say, this is what it's going to be.
Let me get your reaction to 763 guy.
Mm-hmm.
There are no journalists anymore. You two, for example, are clear Trump haters, and you make it known subtly. The days of Walter Cronkite are dead. You just don't hear the news anymore. You hear opinion. So in my opinion, I don't think he should have been fired, even though I think he's an idiot. He's just doing what everybody else is doing, not reporting the news, reporting their opinion.
There are different roles for different news organizations, and if you want a podcast like Joe Rogan, go for it. You can still be a journalist and be a podcaster. I'm ignoring the subtle jab there, just like you two. Come on, man. I'm accused of being a Biden hater. People think I'm too hard on Walz, and people definitely think I'm too hard on Trump.
Or Waltz. Now you're calling him Walz again. For a long time you called him Waltz. Now the Republicans are calling him Waltz, and now you're not calling him that anymore.
Until you had held me accountable.
You paid. I thought you knew something we didn't, quite frankly.
Well, I normally do. Generally, that's true.
Waltz sounds more profound than Walz anyway, to be honest with you.
It wasn't exactly you. It was the governor's daughter. Grace.
Admonished you?
Well, I just saw on Twitter they're asking her pet peeve when she's interviewed for some magazines, and her pet peeve is that. Don't call him Waltz. Call him Walz. So, come on, man. We call him as we see him, and you're not going to tell me that Donald Trump is not pushing the envelope. When Donald Trump deserves credit, I think we try to give it to him. And there are many things that he does.
All right, we got a lot more to get to from your. We're going to get to some of the items in your list as well, and then if there's any updates today, we do have to talk about. Did I read now that part of the new budget deal, the pot tax went way up, like through the roof?
We don't even have a blunt shop yet,
but we have the taxes.
But they already raised the tax on it.
Yeah, isn't it like 25% or something?
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. If you have questions for Kessler. A lot of kind words coming in.
I'll bet there are.
On your behalf. Bradshaw and Bryant, really both of our behalfs. KFAN text line, the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is, as always, 64686. Terry Moran used a burner account, got mixed up while he was drunk that night. That's a new theory.
That's a great story. Another conspiracy.
Exactly true. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. Lots more to get to with Special K, Pat Kessler, back in just a minute.
Head over to the contest page, KFAN.com. Enter for your chance to win a 2-night stay at Breezy Point Resort for 4, including golf, all thanks to Custom One. KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter.
That was so good. That was TV gold. That was TV gold right there.
Pat Kessler, part 2, joining us on the Fan. So let's get briefly. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on this. Is the 2025 special session of the Minnesota Legislature? Are we done? Is there? Because I thought I read a headline indicating that we might have another special session, depending on some change in federal funding that could end up forcing the governor to call a second special session, or?
Yeah, Dan, we're done as a society after the 2025 session. Yeah, they did what they were supposed to do. They cut the budget somewhat. They made a budget, however, so the state government will be funded, but they did a number of things that you're not going to like. And once again, no sports betting. They raised the tax on pot, the retail tax on pot, or the state tax, I should say, to 15%. That's a 50% hike. Now we are number 4 in the nation for among the highest taxed pot operations, pot states in the nation. And they took away money from the cities and said, we're going to take that tax instead of you. So here's the deal that kind of surprised me with that I was a little struck by how much money they're actually raising, and it looks like it's a heck of a lot more money raised by taxes on pot than it would be taxes raised on sports betting. They're going to make $200 million on marijuana taxes in the next 4 years. That's a lot of money. So it's the thing. So, yeah, that's one of the things the legislature did. But importantly, and we got to remember all this, that they ended the session, and the big takeaway is that they took away taxpayer-paid health insurance from adults who are in this state illegally, what many people call illegal immigrants. So they took away health care for them, which is, in many people's view, immoral, but in many others, and this is why they did it, a lot of people say, well, they're here illegally. Why should they get health care? And that was the big sticking point, and a lot of people very, very, very upset. That's going to have tails, as we say in the business. I think that will haunt some Democrats as we go forward, and Governor Walz signed the bill.
And what's the pot tax update?
The pot tax, they raised the tax from 10 to 15%.
It's 15. I said 25, so it's 15?
10 to 15%. That is a 50% increase, and that makes us one of the largest, one of the top 4 in the country. Washington, Illinois, California, and Minnesota. So that's one of the deals. So it was a significant special session, too. And yes, you mentioned they may have to come back, because if they pass what Donald Trump calls the one big beautiful bill. And by the way, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans called it a garbage bill. A garbage bill is when you throw everything into one bill and just vote on it and nobody knows what's in it. If they pass that bill, there's going to be roughly $800 million cut in Medicaid, and that is going to hurt Minnesota very, very badly. They're going to lose $500 million in Medicaid treatment and Medicaid funds, and so they're going to have to come back and figure out a way to cut the budget more.
So that would be the return to a special session.
That's the reason they would do that.
They would do it. All right. What are the conditions on the ground in California today? And maybe just as importantly, what are we seeing in other major American cities?
This is kind of interesting when you look into California. And let's talk about the most recent things that have happened. The district attorney in Los Angeles, the police have charged a number of rioters with crimes, and they've charged them very quickly within a couple of days. And these are people who were looting, who were burning things down, who were setting Waymos on fire. By the way, is that about the weirdest thing you've heard? You summon a Waymo, which is a driverless
I didn't
taxi.
Even know, I didn't even know what a Waymo was until I read the story.
So you summon it, and then the computer, like HAL on 2001: Space Odyssey, says, "Where may I take you?"
Yeah,
like that.
Right.
They set it on fire. It was crazy. It really brought me back in a PTSD way, lowercase PTSD. To Minneapolis when we saw the 3rd precinct burn down, and you're going, where in the hell are the people to stop this? And then you see people burning and looting the Target stores downtown, rampaging in the streets. And the Minneapolis riots were much, much, much bigger than the ones in Los Angeles. That's a very small, confined area. But right now they have curfews at night. They are arresting people as they should. And at the same time, and you can hold two thoughts at the same time, many say that this is an event that was provoked by President Trump by sending in the National Guard over the objections of the governor and sending in Marines, and nobody knows what the hell they're going to do if they encounter any kind of resistance. So this is almost like Munchausen by proxy, where you create a chaos so that you can solve it. And that kind of is what is happening here. But as you ask, yes, I think these kinds of protests are beginning to spread to other cities, which is very, very troublesome. And, we all hope that there isn't the kind of violence that you start getting National Guard called out by the feds in every state.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand, is whether it's building or whether it's actually receding.
I think it is. I think it's spreading. And you've got to figure out a way to contain these protesters, which are the people who are idiots, who are committing violence and setting things on fire and throwing bricks and rocks at law enforcement. And think about what happened and how it started in Los Angeles. They were serving a warrant on a particular establishment, but nobody knows what ICE is doing. Similarly, this happened in Minneapolis, where they showed up at a place and you've got all of the alphabet letters of all of the different law enforcement agencies, and people didn't know what was going on. FBI, DEA, ICE, all of these. And suddenly all these people have converged, which is very, very dangerous. I think this is the kind of thing that is going to be happening around the country as they start to ramp up the immigration enforcement around the country.
LA Times headline: protesters or agitators, who is driving chaos at LA immigration protests? This is always the question. This came up in 2020, quite frankly.
Yeah, it came up in Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis, exactly. And there's a quote from the police chief there in LA, Jim McDonnell. He says, when I look at the people who are out there doing the violence, that's not the people that we see here in the day who are out there legitimately exercising their First Amendment rights. These are people who are all hooded up. They've got a hoodie on. They've got face masks on. They're people that do this all the time. They get away with whatever they can, go out from there, from one civil unrest situation to another, using the same or similar tactics frequently, and they are connected. it's always the toughest question, I think, to answer is to get to who is actually involved in what aspect of the protesting and or rioting. And as you know, we're in a very visual world. So if there's a shot of the what are they called? The Waymos on fire, and somebody's got a Hamas scarf on, that's an ad.
That's a trigger.
That's an ad that's going to be used in the midterm elections.
Even if it's a very small area of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
This huge city of Los Angeles. Absolutely. That's going to happen. So these protests, which are getting out of hand, and now Democrats are and should be condemning this. But remember that these are protests that began, and the Los Angeles Police Department, the Highway Patrol, all the SWAT teams in California said we have it under control, but President Trump sent in troops anyway. So is that the new scenario? And the president said, if you spit, because for some reason he says that people are spitting on police officers, if you spit, we hit. So interesting. I'm old enough to remember when President Trump pardoned all of the protesters on January 6th for beating police who were beating police officers and convicted and in jail. So this is just a crazy, bizarro, through the looking glass time. And we all got to figure out, against this backdrop of what's happening with immigration, got to figure out a way to get it done. And the president is trying to do it in his own way. Is that the right way? This is the way, so let's just watch it.
Real quick here, going back to within the state, tell me about this Minnesota state rep. And I had missed this story in which she had, I think, publicly, this was, I think, during the debate over the question of, whether who we fund, the taxpayer-funded health care that's now being taken away from illegal immigrant adults. So who is this individual? What exactly did she say, and what do we come to learn about her assertion?
Well, she's a Democratic representative from St. Paul, Representative Her. She made the comment during that debate taking away the health care from illegal immigrants, people who are here illegally in the state of Minnesota. In the floor speech where she was speaking, she was very emotional, and she said, I am illegal in this country. She purported that her family came here illegally, and she is here illegally. She said, I'm illegal in this country. My parents are illegal here in this country. Except it's not true. She later
did she get called on it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. This blew up, man. This just blew up. And she said, you know what? Can I clarify my remarks? Actually, I'm a U.S. citizen. And my parents are U.S. citizens. It's like,
well,
how do you go from that?
How do you not know? I mean, how do you figure you're going to be able to get away with that? And then you weaken your own case.
Absolutely. And I got to believe, and I haven't talked to her and I don't know this, but in the heat of the moment, as she was saying, that I was trying to inspire people to vote against this. And so I told them how I came here. She is the daughter of Hmong refugees and heroes of who helped the United States during the Vietnam War, heroes in Laos and Cambodia, and many of them came here, but they fudged their citizenship papers. Her father figured out a way to get in, and made false statements on their citizenship applications, and they were admitted. That is what the bottom line of this. But she was telling people, yeah, I'm illegal. So now Republicans are calling for an investigation to find out if it's true. Should we see if she's really legal here? So it's a mess. And it's like, oh, man, really? You got to go this far in order to make a point, but she did.
All right, and we still don't have a high commissioner, correct?
We don't.
Did I miss that story too?
We have higher taxes.
Yes.
But that's about it. I mean, I know you're looking for a place to buy your first blunt.
Is a blunt the same thing as a spliff? I think I've asked you this before.
Well,
are they synonymous?
Are they in the same family?
And a blunt.
In the same family?
I don't know.
There are so many names. There are so many names for the sweet, sweet.
Do you remember the song "Pass the Dutchie" on the left-hand side?
Tell me about this.
Well, we can't play it anymore because we can't play bumper music.
You can't play drug music?
I don't think you can play any music. You can't play any music other than the sort of like pre-approved music that we lay out.
Well, this sounds like a drug-induced song to me. Can you say a lyric of it? Is it about?
Well, I think that's a good. I think you can say a lyric. Yeah.
So, is it about? Is it about passing the joint? People are unfairly calling me Puff Puff Pass.
1982.
Okay.
"Pass the Dutchie" was performed by the British Jamaican band Musical Youth, and that was taken from there. It was not really that good a song, to be honest with you, but it was a big hit. At the time, I'm not even sure I would call it reggae, to be honest with you. It was almost like reggae pop, but I was thinking of it because we were talking about you and your propensity to
and I remember,
light up.
I'm old enough to remember an album called "Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers." So apparently, and I know nothing about this.
What are you talking about?
I know nothing about this, but when a reefer... if you will.
Was this Reefer Madness stage?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have to use a little pliers in order to hold it to the very end as it's burning to the very end.
And what's the expression?
Don't crush that dwarf. Hand me the pliers. Think about that.
That'll be on the Power Trip tomorrow at 6:35.
What are you going to do? It's like a cigarette. Are you going to put it out in the ashtray? Don't do that with your sweet, sweet sensimilla.
Spliff has tobacco. Mm-hmm. A couple people are saying has tobacco mixed with it. A spliff has tobacco.
Doesn't sound good.
Mixed with it. So do you have the tobacco mixed with the ganja combo?
Boy, that sounds... You really want that kind of a...
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I know. Do you want that with your chronic?
I don't know.
I would say no.
I'm asking.
Yeah. That's all you do. That's all you do is ask the question.
And you will be, we're late, and you're going to be, I'm told, on the viewing stand for the Donald Trump parade Saturday in Washington.
I'll be watching the parade, and I'm going to be careful about protesting because he says any protester, not just peaceful ones, any protester at the parade in Washington for the president's birthday will be met with very big force.
You can send
see you later.
Your texts and emails, etc., to Puff Puff Pat.
Show Wrap is presented by American Pressure, commercial grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
There was one subject we didn't explore with Kessler, and frankly, that we should have. Donald Trump at the Kennedy Center this evening on evacuations of U.S. personnel from the Middle East. This is a kind of a under-the-radar story that probably should be much more closely followed. Quote, "They are being moved out. It could be a dangerous place. We'll see what happens. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We won't allow it." There's a lot of speculation that a lot of our military is being moved out of sensitive and vulnerable areas because of the possibility that we are about to be involved in a strike of some sort. No one knows exactly what's happening, but that is a story that definitely will be worth exploring in the coming days. Tomorrow, Sarah Spain in studio, Dr. Dan's Inbox, and Russo Radio. Links Storm tonight on The Fan beginning at 9 o'clock. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.